Today's topic of discussion is UK women versus back home women. Now, in today's society, there is a massive difference between women who are raised in the UK and women who are raised back home. Now, there's a bunch of guys who are exiting out, clocking out. They've had enough. They're seeing that a bunch of UK women are ultra feministic. They've become liberal and they are not trying to be traditional women anymore. So in this video, we're going to be discussing some key points in terms of what's some pros and cons of UK women and what's some pros and cons of back home women. So first point is traditional. Now I'm going to play this 15-20 second clip of a guy pretending to be a Pakistani auntie describing UK and Pakistani women. So I'll play it now for you guys.
ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨੂੰਹਾਂ ਆਉਣੀਆਂ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀਆਂ ਸ਼ਰੀਫ ਆਰਾਮ ਨਾਲ ਕੰਮ ਕਾਜ ਕਰਨੀਆਂ ਹਨ ਆਪਣੇ ਧਿਆਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿਣੀਆਂ ਹਨ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕੋਈ ਇੱਥੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹਨ ਹਾਏ ਪੂਰੀ ਦਿਹਾੜ ਬਸ ਗੱਡੀ 'ਚ ਫਿਰਨਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਵੇਪਾ ਮਾਰਨਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਬਸ ਹੋਰ ਕਿਆ ਕੰਮ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ.
Okay, so you guys are back now. You've had a watch of it. Now in that video, the guy was pretending to be a UK auntie. Now this auntie here is from back home. So to summarize what she was saying that girls in the UK, all they do is drive around in cars, smoke their vapes, and just doss around. Whereas women from back home, they're simple, straightforward, they do the housework, and they're really feminine, and they provide you with peace of mind. Now, that video there, even though it's a funny video, it does have some element of truth to it. Now, in the UK, right, how many traditional men and women are left in today's time? You're probably thinking, not that many. Now, the reason why a lot of men are choosing to stay single in today's time is because they don't want to deal with ultra feministic masculine women, independent boss babe type women. Now it's a complete turn off. Now for women who are watching this, they're thinking, oh, why is that a turn off? If we was to reverse the roles, and if you as a woman came across a guy who's just feminine, he is somebody who's indecisive, cannot lead, isn't trying to protect you, lets you do whatever you want, is that going to be attractive to you? The answer is no. And this is what it is. It's the same thing when it comes to guys. Guys are at the point where the guys who are like masculine, got some level of masculinity within them, who have got traditional values, they don't want to deal with feministic women. The feminists, the women who don't want to take orders, don't want to follow instructions. Every single decision that the man makes, she just wants to argue it. She wants to do everything her way. That ain't attractive at all. But this is what it is. The women here in the UK, this is what they're raised to be. They're raised to be disobedient wives. Whereas women back home, so the third world countries, whether it's Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Somalia, Nigeria, all those type of countries, women have still been raised with traditional values. They understand traditional gender roles. They understand providing value to the household is by supporting the man on his purpose, raising children, looking after the household, being a homemaker. That's what is instilled in these traditional women. But in the UK, women aren't taught that. Women are being taught to go out there and provide for yourself. You don't need a man for nothing. Now, when women are raised to be independent, that's what creates disobedient wives. Because they feel as though anytime they can just throw in the divorce card. Anytime there's a disagreement, something that they don't agree with, or they want to do their own thing, they just throw in the divorce card. That's why 70 to 80% of women are initiating divorces in today's time in the West. Now, this is what the issue is. So, next point is family. Now, here in the UK, when it comes to families, they're all over the place. People are literally just doing their own thing in today's time. That's what the issue is. So there's a saying, it takes a whole village to raise a child. Now, how many families do you guys see who are actually united? You've got siblings not talking to each other, always having arguments. We've got families that only see each other on, let's say, Eid or a wedding or a funeral, a janazah. Now, आजकल दा कोई शर्म नहीं है. There's no shame left. Now, when it comes to women from back home, they're going to be instilled with certain family values. And the families are going to try and do their best to make it work. Now, here in the UK, when a man and a woman has one disagreement, they just want to separate from each other. So this is what it is. This is why families uniting are so important. When there's more divisions within our communities, it becomes difficult to have a long-term relationship. That's what the issue is, because family politics ends up destroying relationships. Everyone knows examples of this, where a man and a woman could be arguing, and then they go back to their families and tell them the situation. And those families end up making it worse. So this is what it is. When it comes to women raised in Pakistan, they're going to have family values at the forefront. There's only a minority of women in the UK who actually prioritize family and children. They're not trying to prioritize their career. Oh, I can go make my own money. I don't need a man for anything. Men are trash. This is what the system has been programming women with in today's time, especially here in the West. Now, back home, right, women are getting corrupted by social media, feminism and so on. But they're still a bit behind there for majority of cases. Obviously, you do get certain cases over there. They're completely liberal, doing wild activities, all types of craziness. You do hear certain stories of that back home. But the men who are leading in those households there, so let's say in the villages, so they've got strong dads, they've got strong brothers. They're not just going to allow for their daughters and sisters to be loose out on the streets, because it brings dishonor on the family. But here in the UK, people don't give a damn no more. They don't understand shame and dishonor anymore. We've even got brothers allowing their sisters to link up with other guys at shisha cafes. Link up with random strangers. And they're even dropping them off. I mean, this is just a whole new level of degeneracy. What happened to being protective over your daughters and your sisters? That's what it is. People ain't got no family values anymore. So, next point is passport. Now, there's a bunch of guys in the UK, US, and so on. They've had enough. They're grabbing their passport and they're leaving. They're marrying women from abroad. It's been happening for quite a long while now. So in that first video, when the auntie was saying how these girls are no good, XYZ, you should get married back home. So let's say traditional men, they end up getting married back home. What's happening to the UK women? They're being left single and childless. They're having to fend for themselves now. That's why you see a bunch of women who are old, 25, 30, 35 years old, 40. They're complaining, saying, where's the good men? Good men are exiting out. Good men don't want to deal with masculine behavior. So for women who are complaining, saying, that's not right, they should be marrying us. Men don't have to marry none of you lot. That's what it is at the point here in the UK. I don't know. I ain't going to talk about myself, but I know a bunch of other people who have filtered numerous women in the UK. And there's certain similarities that a lot of women in today's time share. Ultra feministic views. Independent, boss babe type attitudes. A complete delusion. So that when you get married back home, and let's say you used to build a house. So let's say for guys who want to get married back home. So go, let's say, Pakistan. Build a house out there. Get married there to a girl from your local village, somebody who's within your own community. You're going to understand their family, what their values are like, whether they're an honourable family, and so on. But here in the UK, you don't know any of that. That's what the issue is. So, final point is peace. That's what happens. When guys clock out, they've had enough. They're just going to go get married back home. This is what it is. Men want peace of mind above everything. They don't want to come home to a woman who's disobedient. She doesn't want to listen. Every time he tries to make a point, she's just dismissive. What sort of relationship is it where a guy has to keep giving a woman silent treatment because she's just so disrespectful? She can't even communicate properly. Men don't want any of that. They don't want no headache. They don't want no drama. They don't want no nagging. They don't want promiscuous women. They don't want women who have had previous relationships, who have slept around. These things here aren't being addressed enough in the UK. That's what it is with the third world countries. With those third world countries, they understand that this is really important. A woman's value will get deteriorated when she gets passed around by all these different guys. When she doesn't know what her role is in society. This is what it is. I blame the dads oftentimes. Because these dads, this new generation, they haven't taught their daughters nothing. Why am I going to try and marry any of these women who've been raised by weak beta male dads? I ain't going to go anywhere near that. I ain't going to touch that. Because that's what it is for majority of people in today's time. They've been raised by weak dads. Because she's going to bring that same energy to our relationship as well. The mum was disrespectful. She was wearing the pants in a relationship. She tells the husband what to do. I don't want any of that in my relationship. And a lot of the viewers who are watching this, you're not going to want that either. So you'd rather just have your peace of mind and stay single over dealing with corrupted women like that. So just to wrap up, traditional. Here in the UK, there's a lack of traditional women. So when there's a lack of traditional women, men have no other choice but to get married back home. Because there's an abundance of options of traditional women there. So this is what it is. The women who are complaining, saying there's no good men left. Where's the good men? Good men don't want to deal with you lot. Good men don't want to marry you. That's why you lot are just getting passed around by all these different guys. These bum losers. And then you expect a traditional man, a good man with good values, good morals, provider, protector, and so on. You want him to take you on. You must be having a laugh. And the next one after that was family. That's what it is. Here in the UK, there's no unity anymore. Families aren't together. There's all these different divisions. Whereas with back home, you've still got strong communities in villages, in local towns and so on. They hold each other accountable. If you say one thing here in the UK about somebody else, the wrongdoing that they're doing, they're going to be like, oh, what's it got to do with you? What's your business? Now, you could even, for example, see a sister. She's at a shisha cafe. And then, let's say, for example, you know her brother or you know her dad, and you was to tell them. They'd turn around and say to you, what's it got to do with you? Oh, that ain't my daughter, that ain't my sister, that ain't her. Straight denial. This is what happens when you this is what happens when they let their women loose out on the streets. No shame. Where's the shame gone? The next one after that was passport. That's what happens with guys. Guys have had enough. They've clocked out. Alright, I'm going to get my passport and I'm going to go get married to a traditional woman back home. I ain't dealing with this mess over here in the UK. Too much emotional baggage that a lot of women have got. Some of these women are young as well, like 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. They've got all this emotional baggage. They've had all these previous haram relationships. They don't want to take no accountability for that though. It's always someone else's fault. It's always the man's fault. These people here, they need to take a good look in the mirror. Because men have the option to marry back home. Women, it don't work like that. Hypergamy ain't satisfied, oftentimes. The woman sees the guy as like a freshy type, or he can't really speak English properly, and he may not be as educated, and so on. And guess what's going to happen to them? They're going to end up staying single. And then the final point was peace. That's what it is. Guys have had enough. They're like, alright, peace. You women here don't want to cooperate, don't want to be submissive, don't want to be caring, loving, cooperative. No worries. Get married back home. So that's the recommendation I'll give to all my viewers who are watching this. If you can't come across traditional women in the UK, and there's a shortage of actual, real, good quality women, then get married back home to a traditional woman. At least she's going to know what her role is in the relationship. She's going to be prioritizing family values, children. She's going to be raised by a traditional dad, not some beta simp dad who just lets his daughter be loose out on the streets. These dads here, they work long hours, whether it's, taxi driving, corner shop, all these jobs here, and they don't know what their daughter's doing out on the streets. That's what the issues is. That's what the issues are. So, I hope that makes sense, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.